Okay, guys, I am here with Denise Duffield-Thomas, who has impacted me in ways that have been beyond business, beyond money. Obviously, business itself, if you're on my channel, if you're paying attention to my work, you understand that it's a spiritual endeavor as it is. Denise teaches me about business, but she teaches me about money. And I want you to meet Denise because I think that Denise has also taught me that most of my demographic is neurodivergent. Because most people, some of my clients understand my language and they go, oh my God, you blew my mind. Like, where did you come from? This is dolphin sonar. You're speaking my language. And other people are like, what the absolute hell is this bitch saying, right? So Denise, for me, has been impactful in the way that if you're paying attention to my mind on my YouTube, which obviously you do, I see a lot of people teach strategy, but Denise, something about the way she does what she does, all of the dots connected for me. And it's not because she teaches me strategy, it's because she showed me her mind in a weird way. Like when I saw Denise's mind, all of my own like neurodivergence was clicking in. I was like, oh my God, this is what she's doing. I can see it. Like I don't need to take, I took courses on business, all this stuff. And I was like, this is not what the hell I'm trying to learn. And when I took Denise's stuff, I understood something that was so much more profoundly, and I think some people could see, I was like, oh, maybe Denise is like really light and airy. This work for me has been so grounding and so necessary for me. So I want to share Denise with you because she's not teaching, like for me in my mind, when I see her at work, she's teaching what, like who she is, not what she does. And she has a lot, even though she's teaching what she does, she has a lot of parameters around that are just Denise. And I go, oh my God, she's just totally exactly who she is. And she's getting away with it, which used to trigger me, right? You're the only millionaire that I like let in my mind get away with being a millionaire and like being shameless about it. So I hope that this conversation that we're about to embark on is as impactful for everybody on this channel as Denise has been for me, because it's been wild.
How fascinating, Stacy. I've never heard someone introduce me like that before. I'm curious though, because I was only diagnosed last year with ADHD, but obviously the way I wrote my books, people have said, oh, well, that helped me with ADHD. And I was like, well, I didn't even know that I had that. So did you know before I knew?
No. And I see the thing is, so Denise, the thing about me that you probably don't know is, I don't love the diagnosis aspect of things, but a little bit similar to you, I tend, which is funny because I tend to work with people who have lived under the umbrella of narcissistic abuse. And the problem with diagnosis in that realm is that so many people are literally under the umbrella of abuse and they get diagnosed with something when it's really somebody else like pulling the strings. So diagnosis for me has always been, I've watched families come into the system and the identified patient is the sanest one of all of them, right? So it wasn't until my daughter, when I started homeschooling her, I realized like, there's something here and it's exactly what was there for me and nobody addressed it. And she was diagnosed. And then I was like, dude, I understand this kid more than like anybody could possibly understand another mind. And I just kind of like let it be real for me. And that's something that you did for me because I was always diagnosed with learning disabilities and weird things. And I always had support, but I was just considered dumb. Nobody ever was like, hey, you're brilliant. You just learned this other way. So you somehow sinking into that and going, this is how I run my business with that, changed something for me because I practice a lot of shadow work and I recognize my resistance to letting it be true, right? So I had to dig into that. Like, what would it mean if I actually do have ADD? And that's really a thing, right?
Yeah, it's really a thing. My son got diagnosed this year, and that was the catalyst for me seeking diagnosis because it took about 1.5 years or so. But he's like, it's really interesting. He went from being like such a challenging kid in so many ways. Now he's got the diagnosis and he's medicated, and I'm honest about that too. I am. He's like this genius kid. And he just didn't have the space to do that because everything was like feeling bad in his body and too much stimulation and whatever. But like he's he's been at school for not even 2 terms. And last night he was like, give me some more math homework, give me some more problems for my brain. And I'm like, okay, do you want to learn multiplication? All right. And it's just fascinating. It makes me sad sometimes too, because I think of, you know, how it was missed for myself. And there's almost those sliding doors moments of going, well, what could I have done with that acknowledgement? Because I really struggled in lots of ways at school. And I internalized that as being, I'm really disorganized, I'm really lazy. I knew I was smart, but I just thought that I was disorganized and lazy. And so it's been a real game changer for me to go, wow, I just need a little bit of support. And even if I didn't get medicated, the 6 months of me going through that process, it was so validating to go, oh, I need this to help me, or I need, you know, just some extra support. It was very, like, it's been a great journey for me.
You know, it's interesting because I don't love the diagnosis thing, because I've just seen it, like anybody can be diagnosed, right? Like I could walk in any place and be diagnosed with so many things. I mean, I'm in the field, I know what that looks like. But so in a way, I know that I've invalidated this, maybe dangerously, because I also think, oh, I can mitigate for this, which is true, but I'm homeschooling, so I'm mitigating for this. But I actually, which I found so interesting, my daughter was really struggling one day, and I said, honey, you actually are struggling because you have a learning disability. And she looked at me, she kind of felt challenged by it. She was like, what'd you just say? And I was like, you have a learning disability. And she was like, did my teacher tell you that? And I was like, yeah. And she did more work after that moment. It was almost like she was called to attention. Like, what? They said that about me? Like, fine. If I have that, I'm going to like actually do something different, which was really interesting somehow. And I thought like the diagnosis, when I told her that, it was the first time I saw a diagnosis as like a launch pad for something, like filling the gap truly and being foundational, instead of like, oh my God, I have this diagnosis, so it's my excuse to be a shitty human being, basically.
Well, absolutely. I was already successful when I had got the diagnosis, but I didn't always feel good in my brain and my body.
Yeah.
And that was for me going, I can find all the mitigations because I have already, but I was just really struggling. And what was really invalidating is I love the woo-woo world. I love the spiritual world, but friends would say to me, oh no, it's Kundalini rising. Oh no, it's a spiritual awakening. Oh, it's this, it's that, and to even just be able to say, but my brain just literally just works differently, and that's okay. Like I have a different dopamine response. One thing that is a physical manifestation of that is I've lost a bunch of weight in the last year because I was medicating with food.
Yeah.
Because I was bored and I could just eat and never feel full, never feel satisfied in my body. And so even just that of going, sometimes things just are what they are. You know, I started exhibiting signs of perimenopause in the last 2 years. And again, I had people trying to invalidate that. Yeah. And it's like, imagine if when you got your first period, people were like, no, you're just making this up. This is just like, you know.
Yeah. Well, welcome to my channel of narcissistic abuse, right? Like this is what people deal with all day, every day, of invalidating their reality. So yes, I so hear you in what you're saying there.
Yeah. And just even realizing like we all want to have our businesses different. And I think this is where I've been loving having these business conversations, because we think it has to be done in the same way as everyone else. And if anything else, the last couple of years has shown us that lots of professions had to learn to pivot and do their work online in ways that before, oh no, you can't do your job remotely. No, you can't see clients online. No, you can't. And it's opened up this space for us to go, well, maybe I could do it in a way that suits me, the way my brain works. But not only that, my family situation, my capacity for work. I remember when I was doing coaching and I could see about 6 clients a week before I felt energetically maxed out. And I'm sure I could have done more work on, like, you know, holding better boundaries and all that kind of stuff. But I remember meeting someone who saw 100 clients a week. 100. And I felt like such a loser, but I was just like, I can't hold the space for that many people. And so it's even just the reality of that, of going, I'm a night person, I'm a morning person, I like seeing people face to face, or I had a session an astrology session one time with someone, and it was Skype chat.
Nice.
Not even talking, no voice, no video. And I thought, I wonder if she had to go through this process of going, am I allowed to just offer this just chat, like Skype chat? Yes, there's so many different ways you can run your business, but we feel like we have to fit into a box and we're only allowed to do it in a certain way. And so that's, for me, that's the most exciting conversation, because we've all got something. You know, I know tons of people who've got chronic illnesses and they can't do their business the way that everyone would. When I first got my first business coach, she said, you have to go to every networking event within a 3-hour radius of your house. And I was like, but I'm an introvert. And she goes, well, how are you going to get clients? Because in her mind, that was like, that you have to go, because she was an extrovert. She loved meeting people face to face. She loved going to events. I was like, I just want to sit in my house and talk to people and wear my PJs. And she was like, well, you can't make money.
Can we talk about this? Because back in the day, I met somebody who, she was like, oh, I'm a coach. I like coach on, on the beach. I charge $300 an hour. She wasn't even like credentialed. I had like almost a master's degree at that time. And I was like, who is this person? I hate this person, right? And now I live this life. And this is what one of the things that attracted me to your work was I live this life that is such a contrast. I could literally be having a foot bath right now, and I on foot bath while we're on this call, and I work from my biomat, and I hike on the mountain, and I charge decent money for what I do, and I feed my children. Like, it is insane, the contrast of me being the single mom of 2, paying a mortgage, working full-time, going to school full-time, and really just like being sick constantly. And my life is so oriented around nurturance, which is not allowed generally. But the reason, when you said I can't hold space for like 100 people or whatever, the reason that I came to you was because I had a client, still do actually, who, her contrast is she is a millionaire and she's around a lot of billionaires and she fucking hates it. And I was like, I cannot help this person because I am starting to hate this person, right? Like, because I am over here, working, doing my job, like getting by. And she's like doing her thing, going, I don't have $1 billion, so I'm not successful. And I'm like, is this for real? And that's when I came to Money Bootcamp, because I was like, I cannot hold space for the amount of contrast. Like, I have to expand into be able to hold a conversation with somebody and be able to have them say, yes, this dude just gave me $4 million and it's not enough for me, right? Like, my head was exploding constantly. So I was like, I need Denise to help me with money, because money has been a place of dirt and abuse for myself and a lot of people that I work with. And also the thing about that contrast is, so I work primarily with codependents. So let me just put this out there in my terms, which is, let me just define it, which would be codependency in my definition is the addiction to healing in the external, what is unwilling to be looked at in the internal. So I was a person who was literally piss poor and let couch surfers live at my house for months, right? I couldn't even feed my own kids. And I would work harder to like have them stay at my house for absolutely no reason, right? So when it comes to money and codependency, right, can you see how dangerous that could be? And one of the things that Denise teaches is money archetypes. I am an alchemist, nurturer, connector. So I could alchemize for anybody but myself. And this client who was getting lots of manifestations based on our work together, I was like, okay, she's getting that and I'm not. Like, what is happening? Like, why can I do that for somebody else, not myself? That's when I came to your work, because the contrast for me, I was like, I cannot hold space for this conversation and I need to be able to, which is really interesting. So if you want to talk to that sense of contrast, I can't hear you. Can you hear?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I love the word contrast, actually. I love it a lot. And I talk about it a lot at the moment because I've worked with so many people now. When I first started this work, I was like, oh, well, you only have money blocks if you grew up poor. Or you only have money blocks if your parents talk negatively about money. But what I notice is often it's the story and the contrast of what you saw growing up. So some people might have had a very affluent upbringing, but their parents talked about money as if they were going to be homeless on the street the next week. Or their families didn't have a ton of money, but they made them feel abundant. And sometimes it was the contrast they saw between themselves and their peers. And often this would come up like in that tween years when you're starting to become aware of the role that money plays. So you might have been like middle class, but you went to a wealthy boarding school. And so you felt like you were the poor kid.
Yeah.
And so that's the interest that I like to look at, is what is the contrast of the stories that we come up with? Because what's interesting about that story you said about the millionaire versus the billionaire is that we think that we're ourselves and then we'll be this perfect version of ourselves with money, that everything will be, no one will die, we will be perfect in word, thought, and deed, everything will, and it's this completely unrealistic version of ourselves. And the thing is, how you are with money is usually how you are with more money, especially once you get beyond scarcity, right? And so that frugality that some people might have, it doesn't matter how much money they put on top, they might still have that feeling of scarcity. And it's the same with that alchemist thing of going, everything's going to work out, or that resentment that alchemists get of going, hang on, how come I'm not getting rewarded for all of my great ideas? Because alchemists are so good at giving them to other people and being these channels for other people and being able to be like, okay, it's okay for me. So it's fascinating, you know, hearing that, because like you're going to be the same. Slap another $1 million on and it'll be the same. And
that's what I realized.
Depending on who you're surrounding yourself with too, of course, is always that interesting contrast. But yeah, I love this conversation. So you're an alchemist. What was your other ones? Alchemist,
nurturer, connector.
Nurturer, connector. Yeah. And so those of you who don't know the archetype, so it's Kendall Summerhawk created them. I'm certified in this system. And it's a really interesting way to look at 8 different stories and how we show up around money. And each archetype has common sabotages that come up again and again. So I'm a ruler, and the ruler sabotage is that we lie to ourselves and say, I'm just going to work a little bit harder just for the next little while, and then I'll take a break. But it's never enough for a ruler. So the ruler's like delusional about time and space and energy. They just keep on piling things on. And it's like the bank robber who says, I'm just coming out of retirement for one last heist. But the ruler's like, I'll just work really hard now, and then I'll put healthy boundaries in place, or then I'll relax. And then the alchemist is thinks that they have to find a business. They have to find one thing, instead of realizing that they're a channel, they're an ideas doula for other people, and they're not responsible for following through things. But we all come from families that tell us what real work is supposed to be, how people are allowed to make money. And so we have that whole nature nurture debate, right? Of going, sometimes we overcompensate for our family's money behavior. Sometimes we unconsciously copy it. And sometimes we don't know who we are around money because we grew up, you know, with lack or trauma around money. And we have to unlearn that, and we have to unpick it.
Yeah, I really noticed that the other day. I went to a wedding and I realized like how a fish out of water I was in that particular area. But that's another reason that I appreciate you, Denise. And I think that I listen to you because I'm a person who walks 2 worlds in my mind. I'm very good at bridging that gap. And I think that I don't like when people try to tell me about, like, I've never had a business plan. I'm in business. I have a wait list of over 275 people. I've never had a business plan. I cannot believe I get to do what I do, right? I'm straight alchemist in that way. And I think I really operate based on my inner guidance and like, just, there's no strategy, right? Like it's good. And you are helping me recognize it's okay to be me and attract money here. Like I used to think I have to be rich and then I'll attract money, or I have to be something different. And that's the primary thing growing up. My dad would always say, if I had the money, ... And then I work with so many people who have the money, and I'm like, I'm richer than this person. They're paying me to get the riches I have, which is so interesting to me. But I really appreciate that. I know that you can bridge that gap between like, I don't come from money. Like this is a new world for me that is, and I love the inner terrain world as it is, but like the money world is something I'm really learning how to like kind of, I'm not even walking yet. I'm just like holding onto the table and learning how to hold myself up in it, I think, in the money world. So it's been fascinating because I can listen to you and feel allowed, because I used to feel like money was really bad. And this is another thing that came up in your work with me, is I realized my own money story. Like I hired a cleaner. I felt horrible that she was cleaning my house. And then I find out she owns rental properties like all over the place in foreign countries. And I'm like, wait, I project my own scarcity to other people. And then I codependently want to save them when they're fine, right? Like, this woman's fine. She doesn't need my help at all. She's not thinking about me at all. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe she's cleaning my house. I feel so bad. I should feed her. I should feed her whole family. She's probably poor. Like all of these things when I'm like, this chick's better off than me right now. Like, what is happening? So that was an interesting thing when I was like, wait, I have to walk two worlds. And that's kind of the thing about like ADD too. It's like, bringing my daughter to this world where I know how to function properly. Like I see her mind and I know how it works and I know that it's fine, but I want to help her expand it into a new world. And there's like this bridge to gap, right? And it's kind of the same thing for me. And I think that you have helped me recognize that, like, oh, I can do that too. I'm a person too. I can do that too.
Yes, exactly. Because we didn't have any examples of what wealth would look like beyond TV and movies, really. But even, I remember 10 years ago, I Googled like wealthy man, and it was like, Forbes list of like 100 richest men, whatever. And they all look different. They're all different ages. They're different sizes, heights, body thing. Some of them wore suits, some of them wore hoodies. There was no physical commonalities. But when I Googled wealthy woman, I would just find stock photos of models wearing bandage dresses, those tight bandage dresses, on fake private jets. And there wasn't a real sense of real people. It was like, this is a construct, of what a wealthy woman should look like. And so I started doing mirror work where I just went, this is what a wealthy woman looks like. And I actually think it's more powerful when you do it, when you're feeling not physically great, because I see so many women have this idea in their mind of physical deservingness to attract money. And so I would say it when I'd like get out of the shower or get up, or if I'd had a tough night with the kids, and say, this is what a wealthy woman looks like, because I wanted to hear what my brain came up with. And often it would be like, no, you're too short. You're too old. Like you need to lose some weight, or you're not deserving enough. You're not organized enough. You don't, you're not ruthless enough. Whatever it was that came up, because we didn't see it. I would have loved to be a writer my whole life. My mum bought me a typewriter very similar to this one that you can see in the background when I was 9, a blue typewriter. And I would, I'd type on it, but it never occurred to me that I was allowed to be a writer. And the only examples I saw were Mary Fisher, played by Meryl Streep, in a movie called She-Devil. And it was like in the 80s or 90s. And she was a real bitch. She was like this wealthy, she wrote romance novels and she was a real bitch. And I never really saw any examples of what entrepreneurs could be like, because I only saw like Dynasty, and it was like the rich bitch who, ran a company, and we hadn't seen it. And so now you think, well, what examples then do we have of wealthy hippies, or wealthy single moms, or wealthy beach bums?
Can I say something about this?
Yes, go on.
So this is so naive of me, and I love my younger self. I love myself so much. When my son was in 3rd grade, I literally did not even know what the word entrepreneur meant. He did a series on entrepreneurship, and they asked him to do a report on an entrepreneur he knew, and he did one on me. And I was like, what? It took my son's like being in 3rd grade to say, my mom's an entrepreneur, for me to be like, wait, I am? I had no idea. I was in private practice at that point for like probably 4 years. I had never, because I consider myself a healer, not an entrepreneur. And that is a really, like, I'm very much into shadow work, and my mom, so let's talk about this, because this inner voice that comes up in mirror work is what I would say is the external narcissist coming in at somebody living who's probably paying attention to my channel, which, she would say, if I was like negotiating, or if I was like, I want this, you're bossy, you're manipulative, you always, like all of those good qualities of me being like, hey, I'm in here. Hi. She'd be like, tame that down. You're doing this thing. It's horrible, bad, wrong. I had to unlearn all of that stuff just to get, just to be in business, which was super, that's not a super comfortable thing going on. So that inner voice, I want to touch on this because I know that how deep programming goes, but narcissistic abuse is pretty intense, and that like it wasn't until like 2 years ago I really thought to myself that like, this is so sad to say, especially because I unhook the world from narcissists in this way, but I still have a belief that I can't live without my mother's financial support, even though she does not and has never financially supported me. What makes me believe that that's true, which is so weird because everybody else who sees my life is like, what are you talking about? She doesn't do that at all. And I'm like, but, and it's so deep, the programming and the kind of like the voice and the abuse and that you don't deserve. And then you grow up thinking like, if I have to sabotage, or it's definitely going to go away. So what's the point of even having it? Right.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, like financial abuse, I guess.
Well, of course, because that voice is so powerful. And it really, I'm not a therapist, but what I come at with a lot of my work is how can we fill a few of those holes with self-love? And that's really all my work is. I talk about money in so many different ways, but I really try and bring that self-love and self-acceptance, because if you have never had anyone in your corner, you have to try and have at least yourself in your corner. And that can be very reassuring to your nervous system, just to be like, hey, no matter what, I love and accept you. And that's hard. It's really hard work.
So much work. So worth it.
You have to then uncover, like, I'll have goal setting workshops, and I'll say to people, let's write down your goals. And they sit there and they go, I don't know, because they've never been allowed. Yeah. I don't know what I like. I don't know what my favorite colors are. I don't know what I would buy if I had the money, because I've never been allowed to choose. I've never been allowed to express my desires. I've never been able to push back and say that doesn't work for me. That can be devastating. And so I'll say to people, just practice. Go into a restaurant, really sit with the menu and say, what do I feel like? And that might take you years to go, actually, I feel like this because I've always been told I'm only allowed to have this or that. And so I don't even know. I'll just eat whatever people tell me to. Go into a shop and go, what colors do I even like? Because I've never been able to choose, or I had to look at the price tag to see if I'm allowed to even look at it or even worthy of trying it on. I never even allow myself to look window shop. I was like, don't even look. And that stuff it just takes so much to unwind and uncover. And for some people, it has to be therapy. You have to go down that route and get real therapy. Sometimes self-love work and inner teen work, inner child work, that stuff can really help. But we can't control the people in our life. We cannot. We can only work on our own stuff. And that's what I try and do with my kids, is I try and work on the self-love and acceptance, because they're going to have completely different jobs to us. They're growing up in a completely different world. But if we can teach them that no matter what other people are saying to them or doing to them, if they can be in their own corner, that's going to be helpful to them.
Well, it's interesting. Not a lot. Some people of my demographic have, and that's the struggle, I think, a little bit, is that like they've never had anybody in their corner. So even that demonstration to self feels like a big fake lie. And then we hate the world because we're like, why do I have to do this for myself when you had like a normal mom who loves you or something, right? So that it can, it's so that voice, taming that voice is having somebody else control you from the outside, financially or mentally, and both are theoretically the same exact thing, to be fair. That's kind of I think what my demographic would be looking at. Like, somebody else is literally controlling my mindset about money, and I'm not even in here. I've just taken the program. So let me say one more thing, because we're about to run out of time. I thought that this 40 minute thing didn't happen. It's saying that I have to start again.
We can hang up and start again if you want to go longer.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
I think you can. I'm not sure, but you might even be able to send me a new link or whatever, or we can wrap up. It's totally up to you.
Okay. Let's go here. Another thing that you were really helpful with me in, and I know that this would be really helpful to my demographic, the black and white thinking. So I want you to know, Denise, that you have grounded me in my actual life, in the sense that I know that success is a feeling and not a place, and it's never going to look like what I thought it was going to look like. And a lot of people I
Absolutely.
work with have image disorders, right? So they think if I'm not in the image, I'm not successful. And I'm not in the image and I'm successful. I'm like, literally, it's so weird to say this because I'm not like super rich and blah, 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 but I'm the most successful person I know. Like, I feel it in my bones. I live how I want to feel. I wake up when I want to. I do what I want to, right? And well, I mean, within means, I'm not like on a jet plane right now flying to like Tahiti or something, but incremental upgrades. So a lot of my demographic really struggles with wanting to get out, right? If it's not perfect, like, we grew up in a place where we had to like really want to get out, really want to get out. And we don't know how to stop wanting to get out, even when we get in a place that's good, right? So this particular place I bought when I was 25 years old by myself, didn't tell a soul that I was buying a house because I knew they'd be like, you can't do it, you're blah, 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 blah. So I bought this house by myself, and it kind of felt like my freedom at the time, but then of course felt like a trap. And your concept of incremental upgrades, again, helped me bridge this gap between my super black and white thinking, which is like, you know, my son, I've always wanted to plant an apple tree in my yard, but I had this image of my yard being this amazing peninsula yard, out, you know, next to the ocean. I could hear the orcas and shit. And I put my apple tree there. I never thought of putting an apple tree in my freaking backyard right next to the train tracks in front of the mountain, right? Because it's not perfect. It's not like my vision. So that incremental upgrade has literally, I live a life, Denise, thank you, that literally feels like a vacation. I got this little pool outside for my kids that we can all swim in. I got a projector outside. I feel like I have a big screen TV. Like, I don't need to go anywhere. My success is right here. It starts right here. I used to think, oh my God, my success is going to start when I have money or blah, 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 blah. It starts right here, and I'm in it, and I started it. So that sense of black and white thinking of incremental upgrades, if you want to like kind of speak on that, that's been so helpful for me because my demographic is definitely black or white thinkers.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we get cut off, I'll just either just email me the new link but
Okay,
it's that feeling again of I'm here and this perfect version of myself is there. And you give anyone a lottery win, most of the people are straight back where they were in 5 years because they haven't acclimatized to that. It hasn't taught them anything. It's not grounded. And so when I do the incremental upgrades, it's finding the things that make you feel poor or make you feel inconvenienced, finding the symbolic things and upgrading them to the next level. Because as you do that bit by bit, you create that abundance. But it means that you do it with what you have, where you're at. And if you can find the symbolic things, that's even better. So like I'm using a plastic pen, right? It's not a first class pen, but it's not that important to me. But yet there were things that were super symbolic, like having a proper winter coat for me was so hard because I was used to making do. I'm not allowed to be comfortable. I'm always having to kind of suffer. So for me, upgrading, oh, I'm allowed to be warm. I'm allowed to get an electric blanket so I don't have to suffer, was a hugely symbolic upgrade for me that wasn't even that expensive. So sometimes it's not about the money, it's creating your version of a first class life. And in the process of it, not only do you become more acclimatized to more abundance, you start to attract more of it too, but you're super grounded because it's never like this roller coaster of fake it till you make it. It's just like, well, this is who I am. And this is my new normal. This is my new normal. This is my new normal. And you will always find new things to upgrade. You don't have to do it all at once. And it's not about having gold and diamond everything because we all have different desires of what feels first class to us. And that even the process of figuring that out is illuminating.
Yeah, it's definitely changed my life and allowed me to settle in instead of constantly trying to get out. And you know what has really, in that particular way, I've looked at this place that I live now as a really cute Airbnb. I just go, and because on a truth level, it's transient. My body's transient. This is an Airbnb for me. Like, this is a cool town to live in. That's cool, right? That has helped me tremendously to be like, oh yeah, I'm just like, and this adorable Airbnb, and to create it the way that I would want to walk into an adorable Airbnb changed the way that I show up to my life. And now I look at my mess and I'm like, oh yeah, there's messes on vacation too, right? Like you take the kids on vacation, like, why am I cleaning up this freaking mess? Because there's messes on vacation, it means I'm living. So that has been really, really, really helpful.
I tell you what, it doesn't matter how much money I have, my kids still peed on the sofa when they were toilet training.
Yeah.
There's that thing again of thinking, oh, money will make my life perfect and I'm not perfect now, so therefore I'm not allowed to have money. And, you know, like my life is not perfect with money, but I can solve problems, and that makes it great because I don't lie awake thinking, oh, what happens if my tires pop? And that would have been catastrophic in my family growing up.
Yeah.
Anything like that was just a nightmare. But it's that feeling again of going, I have to be perfect and worthy of that abundance, instead of realizing we're allowed to see different versions of wealth and you're allowed to have what you want. You know that book, Green Sheep? Do you guys have that?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. It's just a little kid's book, and it's like, here is the red sheep, here is the purple sheep, whatever. But there's a sheep wearing like a business tie and carrying a briefcase and talking on the phone. And I always say to Piper, oh, tell me who all these sheep are. She's 4. And she'll be like, okay, well, that sheep's doing this. And she always says, oh, that's a business mummy sheep. And I'm so glad, because in my mind, I would say, well, that's a businessman sheep because it's clearly wearing a tie. But in her mind, she's like, well, of course, business people are mummies. So she's like, well, that's the business mummy sheep having a meeting. And I was like, oh, wow, that's so cool that she can see that, even though I still have that preconception in so many ways that success is for men, you know. And I'm tomorrow I'm bidding at an auction to buy a bank that's been turned into a residential property, with my husband and my best friend who's a renovator. And it's pushing all my buttons because I'm thinking, I'm going to turn up, they're going to think, who are you to like register at auction? And it's freaking me out because I still have that, I'm 42. I still think, oh, people are going to think I'm this little kid, you know. And it's like, I own, I don't know, I can't even remember how many properties, like 7, 8 properties now. You know, really, I can't remember. I'm sorry. But because of ADHD, but I'm legitimately a wealthy person now, but I still am like, I've just like lucked my way into this, and they're going to think I'm such a fraud. And I'm not a grown up. How is someone going to let me bid at an auction? And so I say that because there'll always be something new to be scared and intimidated about when it comes to money. And this is new terrain for so many of us, because I've never seen, in my real life growing up, I never saw a woman who was powerful with money. And I went to my friend's got a charity about helping people with domestic violence. And every year she does this big charity luncheon, and they auction off things, you know, for the charity. And I've been to so many balls, you know, and those kind of fancy events where they auction off like boxing gloves or a cricket bat signed by a sportsman or a jersey. You know, it's always like these men bidding for it. And I was like, I'm going to bid something. And it got to like $10,000. And it was for a piece of art. Like, the art's nice, but it wasn't about that. It was about knowing that I have a responsibility as someone who is a wealthy person to give back. And I am the one. You know, I used to sit there watching like, oh my God. Now I'm like, well, this is my job to be the person who is the top bidder. And I don't care what it is. I just know that every year I'm going to bid something at my friend's charity.
Oh my God, so dreamy, Denise.
And it was so much fun, but it was like, oh my God, am I a wealthy person? And this is like literally a couple of weeks ago. And so it is going to be incremental, because I remember the first time that I donated like a couple of $100 and then a couple of $1,000, it was like, oh my God, is this who I am? And it's like, yeah, okay. There's always going to be something new to be scared about, you know, buying things out of your comfort zone, or just even seeing yourself in a different way. It's going to take acclimatization because we never saw it. And as you were saying, you have to untangle all the messages of you're not good enough, you're not responsible, or you can't be trusted with money. So many people have had really little interactions from their childhood where it's like they accidentally dropped money down a drain or something like that. And they've got this ongoing thing of their family going, oh, remember when you dropped money down the drain? And it becomes this family folklore of you can't be trusted with money.
Yeah.
And then it becomes part of who you are. And, you know, or money's really dirty. That's just, we've all had that message. I said that to my kid the first time she went to put money in her mouth, because I was scared she was going to choke. So I was like, money's dirty. Oh my God, what did I just say? And imagine with all the other trauma and all the other things you get, but imagine that first interaction, like of going, like in your nervous system, even the word money could be a horrible response for
It's
it.
abandonment for me. Literally, money to me vibrationally feels like abandonment. And ironically, my invisible friend's name when I was a kid was income, because the income tax check was literally what my parents talked about all year long that would save them from themselves. And it would be gone within like a day. But it was that word income was so godlike to me that it was my invisible friend's name. But money itself was like so incredibly dirty, right?
There's a quote that I'm sharing on all these interviews at the moment by Sarah Blakely. Money is fun to make, fun to spend, and fun to give away. And I think it's really interesting because we've got different relationships with that, right? Some of us are like, no, you can't have fun and make money. Making money is something you do with a job that you don't want to do. It can't be fun. If you're having fun, you're not working hard enough. Or you might have something about, well, I'm not allowed to spend money. I can't be trusted with money. Or you might be super frugal, or you actually might go the other way and be instant gratification, no matter how much money you have. So you're afraid of what you would do with more money. And you're not allowed to express pleasure in having money because that would make you a bad person. And then money's fun to give away. But some people take that too far and think, I should give all my money away or I'm a bad person. And I love the fact it's divided into three, because then it's like, well, how cool having pleasure in buying a bank.
That's
and
crazy.
Oh my God. I love buying old cars, by the way, too. So I never had any stability growing up because we moved so much. I didn't have bedside tables until I was like in my early 30s, like proper bedside tables. And I remember just thinking, now you have a house, you're allowed to put art on the walls. Like it just felt really weird to me to be able to, the commitment of choosing bedside tables. And so when I live near the beach, but I have a farm, there's something there about finally having space to have things. And I took it a little bit too far because I was like, I've got this barn, I can collect things. And I started collecting things that nobody else wanted. Because I was like, but I can see your potential, little old couch that nobody wants. I'll fix you. And it went a little bit too far because I had space. I was like, no one can kick me out of this. No one can tell us we have to move out. This is my space. And so I started filling it with stuff. And then I buy old cars. So I started, I bought an old Combi. Then I bought a Chevy, like a 1954 Chevy. And then I bought like a 1991 Japanese escargot, like looks like a little snail. That's my little flower van. Then I bought an MG, like a convertible MG. And I've bought two old trucks that are just rusty ones that just sit in the garden. I bought a VW Bug that just sits in the garden and put succulents in it. And there's something there of just feeling like the joy of being able to say, wow, I can be the one to buy something for pleasure and to be able to look at it. And an enormous amount of guilt sometimes there too, of going, well, who am I to have a Chevy truck that I don't even drive, that I just like looking at, and it's just beautiful at my farm. So that's a really weird thing to sometimes say out loud, because people are like, oh, lucky bitch, like that's not something to brag about. But it's still that symptom of who you are is always who you are, right? And so I was always an instant gratification person when I didn't have any money. I would just do it with food or, I don't know, other things to get that instant gratification. And I'm the same with money. So, you know, it's those little things of learning that, of going, oh, maybe I should talk to my financial advisor before I make an instant gratification purchase. So that's my upgrade, not changing the behavior, but going, oh, well, let's do a spreadsheet for the bank and see if it makes sense to buy, instead of just buying something, because you'll be the same. It's just chuck more money at you're the exact same person. Yeah, funny,
which is
funny
really
stuff.
weird. That was the thing that like I really did. I needed you to hear that money doesn't change money problems, because, and I really saw that particularly with that client. She got exactly what she asked for, and then all of a sudden she needed more, and I was like, whoa, like that's more money than like I've ever seen in my life. I could live off of that for probably a decade. What's happening? And to hear you say more money doesn't solve money problems. Seriously, like I'm so grateful to know what I know now, and to not, it's so funny because your work for me has changed. My money has changed, but my relationship with money has changed far more. And I think for me, the only rich person I ever saw was my aunt, and she lost everything. And now she's living in my cousin's basement, right? So it wasn't worth it because my mom would leave me. So like money was the thing she was chasing, and I was chasing her. And I was like, wait, I hate fucking money, right? Fuck your money. It doesn't seem fair, right? So I had this vibration of it's not worth it. What's the point? And it's so interesting because I make money with that vibration, strangely. At this point, like I love money, but like I'm not gonna leave my kids for it. I'm not gonna like do that thing that I watched her slave to her whole life for it. Like I'm not going to do that. And then the guilt of like, oh, who do you think you are to not have to do what all of your ancestors did? How dare you like enjoy what, you know, what they created for you? How dare you do that? You're not allowed to do that. You have to slave to what they created, you know, for you. So
oh, absolutely. And you can imagine too that extra layer of guilt if people came from, you know, if they know that their ancestors face like massive hardship, you know, you can imagine that guilt of going, well, my grandmother was a literal slave. Who am I to make money out of just talking to people?
Yeah.
Like, that's not cool. I'm not allowed to do things I love because no one was allowed to do things, and they passed down survival habits. And then I'm allowed to just swan around. That doesn't feel real. That doesn't feel fair. That feels really inappropriate. And so we're just constantly having to unpack some of those things. And you know what? We'll give our kids their own version of money blocks.
Yeah,
we'll give
totally.
them something else. You know, like growing up, I always thought my mom cared more about her boyfriends, or in my mind, it was sex. I was like, she cares more about sex than me. And I think sometimes with my kids, because I love my business, I think, well, are they going to be like, well, mum always cared more about her business than us? I hope not. But just to know that now I can have compassion for my mum in lots of ways, because she didn't understand the impact of some of those things. And we'll totally give new things to our kids, because I mean, at least we can try and be a bit more aware of that behavior and that pattern that we're passing down. But you know, again, it's that deservingness thing of I have to be really organized, I have to be perfect with money, or I'm not allowed to have it. And you'll make mistakes with money. You know, you'll screw up.
You made a differentiation once that was really important for me and really impactful. I'm actually insanely good with money. I've literally lived as a single person of 2 kids and a mortgage, making $20,000 a year. Okay. And having fun and smiling somehow, right? People would probably think like somebody's helping her. Nobody was helping me. I'm great with money, horrible with math, right? I'm not good with technology. I'm not good with math. I needed Chris here to figure out this Zoom thing, right? And when you made that distinction somewhere along the line, I heard you say it. I was like, dude, that's so much more fair to me, because I would always have this idea, I'm not good with money because I'm not good with math. And you separated the two, and I was like,
it's completely different.
I'm great with money. Holy shit. Like, look what I've done. I've sustained a mortgage all this time. Like I'm great with money. I'm not great with math.
Yeah, I'm still not great with math. Like I use a calculator for very simple things. And sometimes I'll say something and Mark goes, that's not the right math. Because I'm doing a course at the moment I'm creating a money archetypes course, and there's like 8 different archetypes. So I was like, oh, there's 8 different things I need to do X many lessons. And I was like, and he's like, no, that math is totally out, because he can do it in his head. Yeah. But I'm really good at the thing. He can't come up with ideas and monetize stuff. He doesn't know how to do it. If I give him a plan and say, go do the plan, he'll do it. He's a projector in human design.
Yeah, I'm a projector.
Yeah, well, so for him, he's just like, oh, tell me the thing and I'll do it. Whereas I'm like, oh, because I'm a manifestor, I'm like, oh, I can see it all visually. And I thought for a long time, well, if people give me money, I'll break it because I'm not good at math. But now I can hire people. I couldn't do my own taxes. I would absolutely screw up my taxes, but I have people to help me to do that. And then they send me reports, and I feel like I'm being a good sovereign of my money, but I still can't do math. And
well,
that's
what you just
fine.
said is what you just kind of nailed what I was trying to say earlier in my intro, that like I'm a projector and I never saw like I want to be shown and more than told what to do. And I never, like, I saw you and I was like, okay, now I know what to do. I know what to do.
Now,
Like,
but that's your
all of the dots
alchemist as
connected.
well. Alchemists are really good at absorbing.
Denise,
like
I've seen a lot of people and I have not absorbed that kind of like dot connecting.
It's more about the osmosis of it, right? Of going, oh, okay, now I get it. And you can process it so quickly sometimes as an alchemist. And that's why I always laugh when I say alchemists in my group. They're the ones that kind of turn up week 5 and week 6, and then they just go, okay, now I know Kung Fu. And it's just like, whoo. But it means though that you have to be so careful about who you're around, because you'll take on bad shit as well if you're not careful. So it's like being really like surrounding yourself with, what are you listening to? Are you listening to podcasts that are telling you can do it? Can you listen to affirmation podcasts while you're working? Because that will be so powerful for an alchemist. And you need examples, because otherwise you can't believe it for yourself. If you don't see it, you won't believe it. So it's just knowing who you are. And that's what my new book is about, Chill and Prosper, is know thyself and prosper. Know how you want to work, and know what you're good at, what feels natural to you, so you can float downstream instead of always like going, oh, I have to be like everyone else. And that takes like permission, just to go, am I allowed to design it how I want to design it? Yes, you can, but sometimes you need the examples. And that's why even in the new version of the book, there's case studies, because people would say to me, but it doesn't work for my industry, Denise. I'm not allowed to. So I was like, no, now I'm going to show you it works for this person and this person and this person and this person. Because then you can go, oh, okay. And maybe I'm allowed as well.
Yeah, people a lot. I don't work, like, I'm not licensed by choice. I could sit and get my license, but I don't want to sit in insurance panels. And people, I work with psychologists and therapists, and they're like, dude, but you have this thing, like, you can get away with that. Like, you're just you. And I'm like, no, dude, like, we can all get away with it. You're just not taking the steps to activate that reality. And not like it's necessary for them, but it is interesting because they even look at me as therapists and psychologists and go, well, you can get away with that. Like, I have to be licensed. I have to do it in the system. You have some special thing that I don't have. And I'm like, I'm here to try to help you pull that out of yourself. Like, you actually have it. But they set me apart thinking, oh, that's for Stacy to do. And it's been, have just showing me. And is Chill and Prosper a revised version of Chopreneur?
Yes, it is, exactly. Nice. Yeah, so it was written pre-pandemic, and so it needed an acknowledgement that something big happened. And I find that a lot of business books are written pre-pandemic. They're just missing a little nuance. So my publisher, Hay House, contacted me last year and said, we'd love you to do a new edition of the book. And I said, yeah, cool. Well, let's change the name at the same time, because it's a path of least resistance thing. Chillpreneur, Entrepreneur magazine owns Preneur and Entrepreneur. As be able to have a Chillpreneur podcast, merch, a course, anything. I won't be able to do any of that.
Wow.
So it was a good chance to go, well, if we're doing a new edition, let's change the name, because I don't want to fight against something. Yeah. And I think that's, that is that path of least resistance thing of going, well, is there a better way? Is there an easier way? Is there something else? And then, now I can call my podcast is called Chill and Prosper. I could sell t-shirts with Chill and Prosper if I wanted to.
Yeah. That's great. I've read all of your books. I think taken all of your courses. Very grateful for all of it. That's all there. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk to your community, because I know it's not a light thing to do that. Sometimes we have to just really make sure who we're bringing into our space. And so I really appreciate it. And is it okay if I share the link to?
Go nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So for those of you who want to pre-order the book, if you go to denisedt.com/prosper, there's all the links to where you can buy it, or you can buy it wherever and just plug in your receipt number in there. And I've got a ton of pre-order bonuses. And one of those is a series of visualizations and meditations. So you can work and change your mindset at the same time. It really works. It's really interesting.
Definitely does.
And hopefully everyone will enjoy the book as well. So that's just denisedt.com/prosper.
Yes. And as living proof, right before I got on this call, I was swimming with my kids. I walked 5 miles today. I worked from home. And I'm present to all of it. You've really taught me how to chill, and the prosper part is natural when you can chill, if that even makes sense. And it's something about the way that you do what you do has really given me permission to do what I do without the guilt. And I'm just super appreciative of that.
And then the ripple effect of that, right? If your community seeing someone who, looks or sounds like you, it could be just that one thing that unlocks in their mind of going, wow, if she can do it. And that's where, anyone, even if you don't ever talk about money, your community feels the energy of that abundance. And it definitely has a ripple effect of how you interact with people, how you show up, how you talk about money, how you talk about yourself and your dreams and your abilities. That has a massive ripple effect of permission throughout all of our communities. It's so powerful.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here for the conversation.
Me too. Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No, just remember that mirror work of like, this is what a wealthy woman looks like. But you can personalize it. So I was good at this is what a wealthy woman looks like after about a year of doing it. I'm like, yeah. But then I had to do this is what a wealthy writer looks like.
Nice. Yeah.
Because I found a new little, it was like your money blocks will always find your little, chinks of resistance, and they'll be like, ooh. And so I had to do this is what a wealthy writer looks like. And so it's really fun to experiment with that and just be like, oh, this is what a wealthy single mom looks like, or this is what a wealthy, hippie looks like. This is what a wealthy queer woman looks like. And that repetition will be really powerful. It really will, because wealth can look like you and me and anyone listening. It really can. There's no weight limit for wealth. There's no height limit for wealth. And yes, there is inequality in the world, but we live in this incredible time where we can choose ourselves and no one can really stop us. It's pretty cool.
It's also pretty much responsibility put that way, right? Because people are like, oh my God, nobody can stop me. That means
hold it lightly.
Yeah, totally.
Why not me? Why not me? And why not just the next step? You don't have to do everything. It's just like, well, why not me? Just do that little next step and be kind and generous to yourself. Surround yourself with other people in the conversation. Having a business bestie that you can text and go, I'm really scared about my webinar. Things like that are really helpful, because no one's going to tap us on the shoulder and go, oh, look at your potential. It's like, well, we have to choose and just go, maybe I can.
I'm allowed to come out, right? That's my work is very much about everybody coming out who's been narcissistically abused, because it's not just for people with sexual or identities. That's not what it is. Like, there is a coming out process. And even you had to come out to cross that bridge of like, okay, I'm coming out, bitches. Like, I'm here.
I'm allowed.
Right? Yeah. And that's a lot of energy, but it's also a lot of energy to stay that contracted, right? So I think people are like, I'm too scared. And I'm like, but you're already using all that energy. You're just doing it in here instead of expanding against the dark, right? Which can be kind of scary, but
it's scary. Let's acknowledge it. It is scary. And your desire only has to be a tiny little bit bigger than your fear. Only a couple of times a day, just not all the time. It's never going to be all the time. But as long as it can just be a little bit more, just enough to take a bit of action, that's it. That's all you need. And you don't have to be perfect. Money doesn't require perfection.
Interesting. I want to say something about what you just said, but I'm like, should I? About just flow. I'm not personally a motivated person. I am motivated by my flow, and my money doesn't necessarily I'm not an accumulator. Let me just put it that way. I don't need my money to perform for me, which is weird. And when I don't need that, I don't know, something about it shifts. It's just, I don't know. My point, I guess, is like, I have a relationship with money that I'm willing to be guided, and I don't need it to look a certain way.
Yes.
So when you say like, you have to have a little bit more desire than your fear, it's interesting because I'm not that person. I don't have a lot of desire. I have a lot of attraction, I guess, but I'm not like, oh, I need to keep that thing that I'm attracted to. And that works for me because it helps me flow with my money instead of like, oh, I desire this thing, which usually creates a mental trap in my mind of like, okay, I desire that, so I have to keep this thing. Versus just like, okay, I'm going to let my money talk to me.
Well, it's the same conversation we were saying about good at math, good at money. There's two separate things. Like, my business is very consistent. I'm not a consistent person, but I'm separate to my business. So my business can have the systems and processes to help people and make money with automation and things like that. But it's a separate entity from me. And so my business can do things that I might not, always feel like doing. So I'll do things like I'll batch social media content, or I'll have people in my team to help me implement things that I don't feel like doing, because I'm a human, I'm not a business. And so even separating that out really helped me. Gay Hendricks, I think it was in his book. Was it Gay Hendricks? No, it was the guy who does The Art of War. What's his name? The War of Art. Sorry, Stephen Pressfield.
Yeah.
Is his name, and he said that Madonna said, like, Madonna works for me. That's what she said. Madonna works. For me. And so I feel that way about my business too. Sometimes I go, well, I wouldn't always feel like doing a lot of the things in my business that make me money, but Denise, lucky bitch, she works for me. The business works for me. And it helps me separate it out, because then I don't take it as personally if people ask for a refund, because I know that they're not rejecting me as a human being.
Yeah, that's another thing. I one of my my shamans said to me once, I don't charge for your healing, I charge for my time. And I was like, whoa, that is game-changing information right there. Thank you very much. Changed my life.
And there's a gendered thing there, right? Because a lot of the work that we do around listening and holding space for people has never been something we've been allowed to charge for. It's something that you just, well, that's what you do as being a human, or being a good sister, a good friend, a good, person at the edge of the community that people would bring eggs to, and a bartering arrangement. And so that invisible labor of, well, I just hold space and I just answer questions for people in a Facebook group. No, that is work.
So much work.
It's just, it is absolutely listening to people, holding space for people, giving people accountability. That is work. And so we're in a space where we're shifting and changing what work really, what it means, and putting value on our time and energy. And, I run retreats sometimes. And the first couple of times I did the retreat, I was like, what am I going to tell people on the retreat? Because I thought it has to be, 4 times better than, because the price is 4 times more than my boot camp. So I was like, it has to be 4 times better, 4 times more information. And then I went, oh no, people will just need some space for a weekend so they can think of their own thoughts. But I was like, I need to solve their business problems. I need to help them come up with stuff. And now I'm just like, well, I'm going to feed you for a weekend. I'm going to let you smell the roses. I'm going to ask you some questions. You have to come up with your business ideas. You have to then go implement it. But it took me so long to realize that there's value in that of energy, being in my energy, or not saying I'm like so great, but being somewhere where someone is there for you to hold space for your dreams is worth charging for. And, everyone listening, you do all different things, but it's that feeling again of that this has value. This has value. And there's a lot of deconstruction around that. If it's something that you love, something you're good at naturally, something that feels fun to you, something that your family is discounted as not being real work, something that society is discounted as not being real work, there's a lot to unpack. So yeah, we could talk about this forever, but just why not you?
Yeah, I mean, it's me right now. It's me. I'm there with you, and I'm grateful. Yeah, I'm so excited when I feel like I live this, what I would call now, and maybe that's going to be like a thing for me, but it's really a seamless life. Like I really live, you have a keyless life, right? I have a
Yeah.
seamless life. Like I don't notice my seams. I used to be like, oh my God, I have a client in 3 hours. I have to freak the fuck out for the next 3 hours and be ready for my client. Now I'm like, oh, I gotta be on a call. Bye. Like I didn't even think about it until that very second. I can be present with my whole entire life. I have this very fluid, seamless experience, which I just really, if somebody would have said to me before, I would have been like, I can't believe this person gets away with it. And one of the things that you're talking about with like energy, COVID, I got really sick with COVID, and it really taught me a lot because, dude, formulating a thought takes so much more energy. Like I went back to infantile mind for 20 days, and I really, really, really got, for the first time in my life, like, no, dude, what you do is work. I used to think like, you're just a spoiled brat. You're getting away with this, like just helping people do this. And now I'm like, dude, what I do takes way more energy than I ever would have suspected. And it wasn't until I had COVID that I really learned, like, dude, forming a thought takes energy. Holding space for people takes a shit ton of energy.
It really does. And I wouldn't say I'm great with boundaries, but there's things that I can put into place, like on my Calendly account. I can only do max 4 interviews a day. If it was up to me, I would just keep on adding them in if people asked me. But my calendar is like the bad cop for me. And there's half an hour between each call, because when I started my coaching business, I wouldn't have any time between calls, and I'd have to quickly go run and have a pee and, all that kind of stuff. And so there's, again, I'm not any better with boundaries, but now I've got systems in place to help me despite myself, really.
Yeah.
On that note, I do have to go because I've got another call starting in about 3 minutes. But thank you so much, Stacy. I appreciate your time so much. And I just hope everyone really loves the new book. But more than that, I hope you've gotten some really good ahas from our conversation.
I hope so too. Thank you, Denise. Enjoy your next interview.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.